So you want to challenge your players to some interesting intrigue and make them think and do things other than just go out and kill monsters. This video is about adding some interesting challenges in the form of puzzles to your campaign. Logic problems. Have any of you done them? I occasionally did indulge in something called Original Logic Problems from Penny Press. This actual issue is from 2009, but that doesn't really matter. They're fun to do. They challenge the way you think. They make you do a little bit of inductive and deductive logic. But they also form what I find is a great tool for adding some challenge to your adventures. So what I did was I went through and found, and I can't even remember which ones I picked. I picked 2 puzzles out of, I think it was this copy. And they're really cheap. I mean, I think the sales price is, if you look on that for an original, is like $11. But if you go on to Amazon, I went looking today, there was you can buy a pack of like 12 of them for $13. They're the older ones. They sell them off real cheap. And I actually picked up, like, one day when I was on vacation, we were out at the beach and walked into the bookstore by there. I always liked bookstores, and there were 2 of them for $2.50. So you can pick them up. Drop by, your local Walmart or whatever that has magazines, and you can probably pick one up for very inexpensive. They're logic problems. They are fun in their own right. But that's not what I'm talking about. I take one of these things. The bit of the challenge is sitting down and figuring out how to. The first thing I do is for converting it to an adventure, is break it down piece by piece, because they tend to write it in, shall we say, in this style here, which is complicated. And so I break them down into a large, separate, one-line statements, rather than these, like they go, oh, there's only 6 points, but there's actually probably 30 separate logic statements. So I break them down very, so they're easy to understand. They're in a document. Then I go through and I do some word replacements. You replace the people with different names. You replace what they're what they're looking for with something different. And when you're done, you have a completely different logic puzzle. It's almost, and if you rearrange some of the lines, and now that the logic is separated out, then you've got a challenging puzzle that, if you've converted it to your campaign setting, it makes some interesting stuff. And what happens is, if you then intermingle that with campaign elements. So for example, there was a village of Aperi, which I created, I drew up and put out there. And what happened was, the party came in to Aperi, and they wanted to find directions to the Hut of Irone, which is another place in the campaign. So that they came in, and the only person who knew how to get there was the apothecary, Shinari. And so let me read some of what she said. Shinari is the apothecary in Aperi. She inherited the shop from Seminius. Unfortunately, Seminius didn't give Shinari all of his recipes before he died. Seminius previously treated 4 villagers, Nani, Akil, Wilkes, and Thorson. Each villager had a different affliction. The cure for each affliction is a different rare herb. Each herb grows in a different location. Shinari will provide a detailed map to the hut of Ironi if the party specified the affliction Siminius cured for each villager, what herb was used, where to find the herbs, and a sample of the herb. Now this is where I added the last piece because, you know, you really can't go do things in the adventure. You have to find the far parts. But this makes it interesting in that they actually have to go out and they've got quests to find various things. So what happens is they start off with 6 more items. Strox is the name of one of the afflictions. Hissing barley is the name of one of the herbs. One of the locations is the Western Crag, and you do not treat the blue-eyed chills with blood radish, and blood radish does not glow on Crone's Bog, and Crone's Bog is where the herb to treat scarlet flu grows. So they've got a handful of challenges there. So the first thing, then you start off trying to find, you have to go to each of the characters mentioned, or each of the non-player characters, and talk to them to find out where it is. So you've got to, the players have to now go talk to a bunch of non-player characters, and each of the non-player characters have some interesting things. Like they go to Nani, and I know where, I listed where she lives and where, you know, there, I know on the map where she's at. And Nani will only tell you if you bring one of the flowers from Nolani's garden, her neighbor. The flowers only open at dusk, and she has no idea what kind of flowers they are. And if you do that, then she will tell you 2 more clues. The verdant meadow is the only place where the herb used to treat her, Nanny, affliction grows. And she also knows that Siminius did not treat her affliction with blood radish. So, but this is, you got to go to Nolani's to get some information from her. And anyway, and so if you go visit her, and what she's growing is she's growing night blooming witch's blood, which is a bright red flower producing a pungent amount of nectar that is blood red in color. According to legend, the nectar can sustain a vampire. But that's a whole different interesting discussion because Nolani isn't a vampire. However, she hears scurrying down in her basement, and she thinks that there's some evil calling to her. So she asks the party, she'll only let them take one of her flowers if they go down in her basement and figure out what's raiding her food preserves, which actually turns into an entire entrance to a dungeon that was with giant ants. This went on for weeks and weeks. This turned into a fascinating campaign because I'd actually put 2 puzzles into the adventure that they had to talk to the various people, and then they had to solve the problem. They had to actually solve 2 separate logic puzzles. They had to go through. I'd get them all the stuff. I actually provided the grids, which are you see in the the logic problems. They provide a grid, if you can see there, of how to solve the logic problem, and I provided that. And to the basically that's the player, a little bit of help. I was amazed some of the players solved it very quickly, and it was interesting. But they have to get the clues and they have to get the pieces, and then you have to go back but it engaged the party with the village of Aperi for weeks and weeks. It went on, and because they would go on, particularly when they go down to the dungeon, and it took them, I think, 6 separate 3-hour adventures to go through and kill all the giant ants that were down there, and they actually find that the giant ants, where they came from, and that there was something that actually created them. And so it built on the immersion in the campaign. It built on everything, and it was all based upon adding some logic puzzles that you split up, that you rewrite, that you give to the characters. A couple of words of warning. It says when you do this, make sure that, after you've broken the logic puzzle down, start with a clean grid that you've created and try and solve the puzzle, because there were a couple of times I screwed up, and to make sure that it's actually solvable with the rewriting of some of the puzzles, because honestly, the way they word some of these is, particularly some of the more complicated ones, is not the easiest to follow. And so they, when you break them out into various pieces, then you can go and show the players have to pick one piece up from one non-player character, which will send them all over a town. They'll get to know a little village or a city or whatever, and they're going through there. From experience, you could actually make each one of these a minor quest, and solving the whole puzzle is a major quest, if you want to talk about it that way. But it gives you a framework to build complex puzzles into your adventure with lots of hooks, requiring them to go out. When they had to go out and find various things, and they fought various creatures to get the stuff. It's reminiscent of going out in World of Warcraft, where you have to go out and get the teeth of some bear or something like that to come back for other things. But it works well. It's a platform that works extremely well with the adventure, because you have to it's a reason for the players to go different places. They have to they're trying to get something so that they can exchange it to get something else. I had a lot of fun with this one, it is a bit of work in prep, because you got to solve the puzzle, you've got to go through and figure out the replacement, and then solve the puzzle again, and then figure out how you're going to have to create a whole bunch of non-player characters. Well, several, depending upon, normally I use most of the puzzles that are there have 5 degrees of freedom is the phrase, that you have 5 categories of things, and each category has 5 items. That's a reasonable size for that. If you want to start off a little bit lower with 4 and 4 or 3 and 3, there are some example puzzles like that. So you just need to find them, reword them. As this stain goes, it says, I always get it out. Good artist copy, great artist steal. Well, we're just going through and we're stealing an idea, we're refactoring it, going through and changing names and places and things that they're doing, and setting it into a fantasy setting, and then giving it to the characters piecemeal, one piece at a time. And I mean, you could do that, and it would make all the difference in the world in the way your characters interact, because they have to go all over the place if they want to solve this challenge. So, good adventuring.